Episode 41 of the Talkin' Pop podcast. Rob and Kelly this week. We will be your pilots. No Brad. If you're somebody who follows the show on a regular basis, you're probably clicking on this and going, whoa, we haven't seen these guys in a couple of weeks. And that's not by design. Last week's episode, unfortunately, suffered the same fate as the Batgirl movie. It was completely irredeemable, and we're going to be using it as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
And it'll never see the light of day, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Tech is not on our side.
Yeah.
For those of you in the greater Toronto area, you know that there's power outages today. There's just all sorts of things that are working against us getting this show out to you, our
faithful
loyal listeners. Yeah.
Just quickly, in like just over a month, probably a little more than that, in about a month and a half, I'll be starting like year 5 of being a podcaster. And if you're watching this and you're somebody who wants to start doing this, here's my advice to you. Technology is a wonderful thing. It's the reason why we're able to do this. It really is. But you're going to have periods of time where it is just not your friend and it just works against you and it's beyond your control. And my best advice to you is to just roll with the punches and accept that as like a reality for what it is. And you're going to have weeks where you're going to want to take your laptop or your mic or whatever and throw it out the window. And that's just the way it is.
But we appreciate everyone sticking with us and coming back this week because we've got lots to talk about.
We do have lots to talk about. And the good news is, even though last week's episode didn't make it out, this conversation is still very much relevant a week later. So, where do we start here? Warner Brothers Discovery and DC on film. It has been a huge topic of discussion since the cancellation of Batgirl. Mm-hmm. And then post the cancellation of Batgirl, we got even more news about how HBO Max is going away and it's getting folded into Discovery Plus. And I also read that it's not just going to be like, oh, it's Discovery Plus now. They might even rebrand that and have that as its own streaming service.
Warner Plus, maybe.
Warner Plus. Yeah, exactly. We had an investors call where they ran through a bunch of projects that they're still planning on releasing. Black Adam, Shazam, obviously. The Flash, which we're going to talk about in a second. Also high praise for the Batman and Joker 2, which is now official that Lady Gaga will play Harley Quinn in that. And they announced a 10-year plan for DC on film. Can't forget that too. And I think everyone, when you hear the 10-year plan thing, it's very exciting. You're like, okay, what does this mean? And right now, I don't think anyone knows what it means because you've got they're proceeding with Joker 2. As I said earlier, they praised Matt Reeves and they praised the Batman. And even though there's some clickbait headlines out there right now saying the sequel hasn't been greenlit, a sequel for that movie is coming. So chill. Then on the other side of the equation, you've got all the Snyder fanboys who are jumping for joy because they seem to think that this means that they're going to resurrect the Zack Snyder DCEU and we'll get a sequel to the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And then even though bringing Ben Affleck into Aquaman is for chronological reasons, that does nothing but sort of fuel that fire.
Yep.
So it's just... It's a massive guessing game and where do you think we're going? What is happening here?
So here's what I think is happening, but I'm not optimistic about it. But I'll tell you what I think is happening is I think that we are potentially cobbling together the pieces of the Snyderverse that people still enjoy, which is why we're still going ahead with an Aquaman movie. Even though he hasn't appeared, I would still consider Black Adam and Dwayne Johnson a product of that. Like
it very much looks like it's from the Snyderverse.
And it,
yes.
you know, that was in the works you know, way back when. And then we have Shazam. You know, we haven't heard any news about Wonder Woman. So you know, I guess our assumption at this point has to be that Gal Gadot is still our Wonder Woman until we hear otherwise. I think what's going to happen is that is going to be the main universe. And then I think these projects like the Batman and Joker are going to be very explicitly marketed as otherworld tales.
Yes.
And I think that they're going to be far more explicit about that than they've probably previously been, to very clearly show that, you know, because those are still, it's profitable. Why not? Why not milk that for all it's worth? But those tonally don't fit. And to your point too, I don't think, I think you're going to get a sequel to that movie, but I don't think you're going to get Robert Pattinson signed on for a 10-year deal to fold into the Justice League. I just don't see that happening. I don't. And you know, maybe if that is their plan, you recast, but from what I'm seeing, that's what makes the most sense to me, is you sort of got your main universe, and then they'll dabble in Elseworld,
like
tales,
Earth 2.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those stories are probably going to be the cash cow that is Batman and Batman adjacent things.
The thing, honestly, we'll talk more about your feelings about like keeping the Snyderverse going in a second, but the thing that excites me about having Joker and Batman exist sort of on the fringe is I think you can really lean into like the darker, more R-rated, violent aspects. Like you don't need to make it necessarily kid friendly.
Well, and also you know, there have been incredible storytellers who have made this work, but for the most part, I would say people have always felt a little funny about Batman as a member of the Justice League. And you literally saw that on display in that, you know, train wreck of a movie where it's like you have these gods battling monsters, and then you have Batman on the ground with his grappling hook. Like it just doesn't, was throwing his batarang. Like it just doesn't jive. So it would be stupid of me to say that they're not going to bring a version of Batman or keep a version of Batman in the Snyderverse. But I think having like a presence like Keaton, where it's like maybe it's a Batman Beyond sort of thing eventually. Like I think there's ways they could do it.
Well,
it's
okay.
Even all this, it's just it does illustrate that it is not a clear path, and it's
and
messy.
I don't think it's a clear path to them, because I think that there's outside forces working against them. One of those outside forces being Ezra Miller. So at the Warner Brothers investors call, they said that they were proceeding with the Flash, and David Zaslav said he'd seen the movie and that it was great. Also, test audiences have seen the movie and it is testing very well.
Yeah.
But you have this situation with Ezra Miller. And then earlier today, it was leaked by a bunch of news outlets that they're considering 3 different options for this film. The first one is Miller does an interview explaining his erratic behavior and does limited press for the film and gets some sort of professional help. The second one is Miller does no press for the film and WBD, which is how they're now being referred to. We got to get used to that one.
Yeah.
Gets out in front of it and just says ahead of the time, we're recasting. So he's in this movie. We know he's a lunatic, but we're recasting. And then the third one is the $200 million film is scrapped entirely. Kelly, I would imagine the tax write-off for that won't get you anywhere close to the $200 million that you spent on the movie.
Yeah.
So this is so fascinating because Ezra Miller is Zack Snyder's Flash.
Yeah.
Like he's very much from the Snyderverse. Ben Affleck had been vocal about not wanting to be in the role anymore. They transitioned him out. They're transitioning Keaton in. We're already down two projects that featured Michael Keaton Michael Keaton was supposed to be Batman in 3 different DC projects, and we're 0 for 2 thus far. So let's just talk about of those 3 options, which one are you going with?
Before I answer that question, I want to say 2 things. So one is, yes, at the investor call, it was, we're going to put out this movie, and where the turning of the tide was this felony burglary charge that has now happened. And then also like this weird disappearance of this family that he's been. So it is like, so I don't want to get into like what is pretty yucky subject matter, but what I'm trying to illustrate by bringing that up is like, this is unprecedented.
Yes.
The like illegal activity that is happening with the star of a block. Like there's never been
a $200 million movie.
Yeah. And like, and I'm sure there's many stories from back in the day before social media and all that was as prevalent of people doing sketchy things. But like, this is one of the most high profile, like it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented. So I wanted to set that stage because I don't think any of these options are perfect options. I really, really, really don't. I think, God, last week when I was feeling a little sassier in our lost episode, I had exclaimed on that episode, "Scrap it!" Like I was fired up and just was feeling that the people in charge were highly incompetent and that they didn't have a plan and that this was a mess. And I literally joked that they should just absolutely throw it all in the garbage. Taking a step back, realizing the thousands, and again, like what's interesting about this conversation is we like to come on this podcast and talk about movies that we liked and shows that are fun and entertaining. We're having like an actual business discussion this time around. And that's what the difference is, right? And so when I think about the thousands of jobs and the hours of labor and, the impact on other people aside from Ezra Miller that this would have, I think their only option is to go with option 2. I don't think option 1 is an option. If you look at the list of charges this person has racked up, I don't think this is a person in their right mind that if you handed them something to say in front of the press that they would execute it on it the way that you hoped. So to me, it's you very quickly, either in line with the release or ahead of it, tell us who the new Flash is. I think you make a very strong statement that you have cut ties completely with Ezra Miller, that you do not condone his behavior. And, for all the reasons I just said, this is about jobs, the creatives, the people that put their heart and soul into the project. And it's unfortunate that it's this person who's sort of the face of it. And then I think you also, when you go and sit down in the movie theater, I think before the movie even starts, you need to put up some sort of either message or, some resources for people with mental health issues and things like they need to manage this. And to be honest, I still don't think they're going to get the return on investment that they're looking for with all that. But I think that's the only way to not completely scrap $200 million and to not glorify this guy, because they can't. He's got to go. Like, he's got to go. There is no, hopefully the guy gets some help and figures his life out, but there's no redemption here from him, with him being the star of this franchise. There's no way.
Yeah, I think getting out in front of it and making it about everyone else involved except him is a smart idea. I think that like you just right away are like, we are releasing this movie because of everybody except Ezra Miller who worked on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't even think you need to like announce who's replacing him. I just think you say this is his last appearance. He won't be back. We'll
But I
cross that
think
bridge when we
the
get
reason
to it.
why I think that would be a good thing to do, maybe it's once the movie's out for like a week or two or something like that, is get people excited to move on.
Yeah,
like get people thinking about the next thing, because they have a 10-year plan and they have to keep it going. I think you know, the other outcome of this is people walk into the theater and they love Ezra Miller's performance. And
well,
so
listen,
they've got to. And so I'm not saying they're going to bring him back, but I'm saying you want to get him excited for whatever's next.
I want to keep this about like DC and exciting and like and I don't want to make this about like negativity, but like honestly, these Snyderverse fans, like I don't trust them for a second. Like I'm seeing a lot of like chest bumping right now and a lot of this online of people who are really excited, and I wouldn't put it past these people to praise Ezra Miller and like glorify him for what he's done. This group of fans, and I blame Zack Snyder for this, quite frankly. I think this is his fault. Like this group of fans is the most toxic group of fandom that I've ever seen. And he has never done anything. Zack Snyder has never come out publicly once and told them to stop, has said bullying is not okay, like that. Never. If anything, he stokes their fire with posting photos of like deleted scenes and that sort of thing. So that's my biggest fear, is I think you have a very, very toxic fan base that is loyal to these characters that got rewarded, quite frankly, for their toxic behavior by having the Snyder cut released on HBO Max. And that, to me, it's like, I don't know, you're in a tough spot, man. Like it's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose. Like there's right
there's
answer.
No, there isn't. I saw, again, everything right now is speculation. So, take this for what it is. I saw another post that said that option 3 to scrap it becomes more and more plausible the more and more Ezra Miller gets himself in trouble, which I mean, at this point, the list is quite long of what's been going on. But
Kelly, imagine, I know that like we're talking about like real life, like issues here and like mental health and crime, and like I don't want to discount that for a second, but it's like there's a very real possibility that you had Michael Keaton back in the Batsuit 3 times, and all 3 projects that he is in will not see the light of. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. And I almost like, so let me just pause here for a second, because you often come to this podcast well prepared with some research.
Okay. Yes.
So I wanted to bring some, not research, but just a refresher of some information that I think is pertinent to just overall this conversation about this movie. So I want to I'll do the Coles notes because it's long, but I just want to regale everyone with a little bit of the timeline of this movie. And the point being, this movie was doomed to fail. Didn't think it would fail quite like this. Mm-hmm. But October 2014, Ezra Miller is announced as the Flash. That's the same year that Grant Gustin started the Flash series on the CW. They're about to wrap season 9. Mm. Then 2015, they get their first director. 2016, Miller cameos in Dawn of Justice. 2016, first director dips out. Also 2016, second director comes in. Then they start doing a little bit of casting. He's cameos in Suicide Squad. Second director parts. Then they get a new writer. Then they get a new director in the mix. Justice League is released. And they were discussing the last director. They finally get them in the mix. Then there's more delays in 2018. 2019, New director, Andy Muschietti. 2019, they bumped the release date again. Then we hit a pandemic. Now we're in 2022 and we're talking about throwing this in the garbage.
Yeah.
Like, talk about production
and
hell.
I honestly, Kelly, I'm so stuck on this. Like, this movie, because of everything that you just like outlined, was very like, oh, the Flash movie, and then they get Michael Keaton.
They kind of
and they
start bringing it together.
And they release that teaser at Fandom with he does the VO and you see him walk in from behind and he's got the Burton type suit on, and you're just like, oh, Kelly, I honestly, that is, I do not want to condone anything that Ezra Miller does. And if at the end of the day they decide like, listen, we can't release this, like, I get it. Like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But like, my heart is gonna break if like I've been ready. I've been so ready to see Michael Keaton back doing his thing and putting that suit back on. And it's just, oh my God, man. So let's just say it does get canceled. Okay. All right.
Oh man.
What happens? Like, where do they go? This is a personal preference. There's a lot of people who after I say this are gonna click off our video. So get ready for that. I don't give a shit about the Justice League. I don't understand why there's this obsession with doing the Justice League. I know that Marvel did Avengers and everyone's so excited and, well, we got to do our own Avengers. I don't think the aside from its groups of superhero teams, I don't think the Avengers and Justice League are the same thing at all. I think Avengers, all those heroes are sort of on the same level playing field.
Yeah, they're a little more,
right?
More ground. I mean, you can make an argument about, the Wanda Maximoffs of the world and all.
Sure.
And when it starts getting a little bit more like that, but the foundation that they laid, the core team that they started out with, you're absolutely right. Aside, the Hulk also is a little bit of an outlier, but even then, because of his inability to sort of keep his powers in check, it did sort of level him out with the rest of them. So yeah, it made sense that the five of them were, up against the odds in New York. It's like Superman could have done that by himself.
Honestly, Kelly, I just crapped all over the guy. If you were going to tell me that they were going to let Zack Snyder come back and they were going to bring that cast back to finish that story, I would green light that before being like, no, we're going to start again and we're going to build all these heroes up again and we're going to do all this again. It's like, no. Like, if you want to do a part 2 to that, because I'm somebody who, like, at the time it came out, I despised Man of Steel. Then Batman v Superman came out and it made me look at Man of Steel, and Man of Steel looks like a masterpiece.
That movie, in the grand scheme of things, it has like, it's not a great movie. It has a lot of issues, but it still could have been the foundation.
Yes.
They could have course corrected from there.
Yes.
Taken the lessons and course corrected, but they reacted. They panicked.
They rushed Batman into it. Yes. And yeah, Batman v Superman, it was just a piece of garbage. And then the whole Justice League thing. So when they put the Snyder cut out, I was like, oh geez, I actually didn't hate the Snyder cut. I didn't. I didn't hate it. So I would rather you do that and get the band back together and finish that story. And then after that, I've said this 100 times, and I went on this big rant about it last week. But nobody heard it, so I can go on the same rant again. You need to zig while Marvel is zagging. Stop worrying about these team-up movies. Just focus on making great films. Make a great Green Lantern film. Like, make a great... if you want to keep going...
I can't believe, like, they haven't thrown everything they have at... We need to get Superman...
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And
I can't believe it.
And even if you wanted to not go the Snyder Cut Justice League 2 route and just like bring Henry back, or if you wanted to recast whatever, and like there's bits and pieces of this that can still work. Like if you Jason Momoa as Aquaman is one of the best superhero castings of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Aquaman 1, whether you loved it or you hate it, it was its own story. It was a contained Aquaman story.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep going and just make another contained Aquaman story, fine. Like, you've got Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves. Let them do their thing. You just said about Superman. Like, if you want to bring Henry back, just do a contained Superman story. Or if you want to recast and start him with somebody a bit younger, do that. But it's just like,
I think
the fact that there's a quote unquote 10-year plan, it's just people see the money that Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame made, and their eye, oh, we got to do that. But it's like, you can't do that. Nobody can ever replicate what Marvel did. You can't do that.
We talked about this investor call. He literally said, we're going to do a model like Marvel. Like, he calls out Kevin Feige in that call. So here's a question for you then. I get what your preference is. You would prefer that we just take the pieces that are working, keep going there and whatever. They're not going to do that. They are going to build a connected universe. Is it your preference, because it is mine, that if they're going to do that and they're going to replicate the Avengers model, I would prefer that they scrap it all. Like, meaning like, get as much as I like Jason Momoa. Aquaman's not my favorite movie, but I like him as that character. I just think that when you have these bits and pieces of what was, it's going to tempt them to keep trying to somehow resurrect what just really didn't work. Like,
this is the point. Yeah. So you're kind of hitting on the point I made earlier about like, well, you might as well go ahead and just let Zack Snyder make his sequel, because the problem is this 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's the problem.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're right. You either go scorched earth and you start again and everybody's gone, or you say, you know what? Let's try and make a sequel to Zack Snyder's Justice League and bring everybody back and finish this story with Darkseid, with all that, and see how that goes. Then once that's done, we can go scorched earth after that and start again. I think you have to. The problem is this middle ground. This like, well, we want to keep Jason Momoa, but Ben's leaving, so we want to do Michael Keaton. But over here, we've also got Robert Pattinson, and then we've got Joaquin Phoenix, who like, but at the same time, in Ben Affleck's Batman / Michael Keaton's Batman is Jared Leto or Jack Nicholson. It's just like, what are we doing?
It makes no sense.
What are we doing?
It makes no sense. That's why like I'm not suggesting, like, I think like let's put our business hats on and think long term. All of these movies that they've announced are planned to come out in the next 2 years. So how about make your 10-year plan a 12-year plan and finish those movies to recoup what you need. I still think they could keep Dwayne as Black Adam, because there's been no connection there. I'm going to imagine there's going to be some sort of sickening cameo.
I did see online that the screen tests for that movie have not been the best.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. It honestly, like, I won't judge until I see it, but just based on the trailer, it just feels like a movie from like 2006.
Pretty like, pumped for Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, though.
Oh, I love that. I love that casting. Great outfit.
Great silver fox look.
Yeah, and sick helmet.
Yeah.
You know what I would do if I was sitting at the Warner Brothers executive table, which I'm clearly not, is I think a market that Marvel hasn't fully tapped into is skewing younger. And I'm not talking about kids. I'm not talking about little kids. I'm talking about casting untapped young talent. Like build a universe on Tom Holland's.
Okay.
Get Dacre Montgomery from Stranger Things as the Green Lantern or whatever. Yeah. And cast, like, maybe like kind of go after the Gen Z crowd of like, be a little hipper and younger than Marvel, because what I would say, Marvel's for your mom. Marvel's for your mom and dad and your brother and your sister.
And for the kids, the little kids.
And for the little kids, it's Disney. Go a little edgy, go a little, not being like, because you can argue that Snyder went edgy, but I'm saying more like, make it cool. Like, the Batman is a cool movie. He's a cool character. Like lean into like younger talent and like start building it up from there, and maybe and like lean a little bit more into like how many stories have there been about Wonder Woman where she's actually like
Kelly, this
killer
is the problem.
instinct.
This is the problem though. This is like, you hit on this earlier about Batman, right? I have no interest in seeing the Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves Batman.
Yeah, it's hard. It doesn't. Yeah,
I'm a Superman stan. As anyone who listens to this podcast knows, I have no interest in seeing Robert Pattinson stand beside Superman, or I don't want to see it.
Because how much did we as kids love World's Finest?
It's
great.
But that's the difference in what I was hitting on with Marvel. Would you ever look at Iron Man and go, I just don't love Iron Man and the Avengers? No, that's the difference between the Marvel and the DC characters. Like they're not the same. Like, you want to make them the same. You all want to make them the same. They're not the same. And so I just think, in the eyes of the consumer, look at the wall behind me. Okay. Like, I'm a nerd for this stuff, and I don't love the Justice League. I think the Justice League is an acquired taste, whereas I don't think Avengers is. I think Avengers is just Avengers.
I think Avengers is like table stakes for Marvel. Like, I think it's like, it is a part of sort of the blood of those stories. Whereas I agree with you, like, Justice League is like, it's a very special episode of DC for, again, sorry, I might be losing some subscribers, but that's how I feel about it too, where it's like, I don't even like, let's go back in time. Like, there was no world in which you were going to put like a Christian Bale in a shared universe. It just wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
I can't even,
not meant for that.
No. And honestly, I think the only two iterations that you could have potentially brought together, if you sort of match their age and time and all that, like, let's remove the actual real life barriers, I could have seen Keaton and Reeves together, because technology wasn't with us yet. Yeah. It was, you could see the two of them flying around on a string together. That's the only iteration I could potentially in my wildest dreams see working.
And when they rushed the BVS movie out, like, they had to recast because they needed Affleck to be a more sort of cartoony version to make sense standing beside Henry Cavill's Superman. And so I think, like I said, what we've come down to here is like, what should they do? So it's stop with one foot in, one foot out. Like I said, either say, we've got all these pieces in place, we're going to have to do the obvious recast and get rid of crazy Ezra Miller, but we've got all the pieces in place, so let's bring Zack Snyder back and let him do his sequel, and then everyone gets their grand finale or whatever. Or we go, okay, we're going scorched earth, and we're going to have this sort of like DC dark, which is like Pattinson and Joaquin Phoenix and like the dark R-rated adult movies, and then we're going to start this new sort of like younger skewing thing that you were alluding to, which is like, we're recasting everything and everyone and starting again, and everybody's young and we're building.
And part of the reason why I say the younger thing is find actors who are going to sign your 10-year contracts.
Yes.
Like, that's part of this, right? Like, you've got to find, like, unfortunately, like, I think, this doesn't apply to Henry Cavill or Ray Fisher or anything like that, but the Ben Afflecks of the world are movie stars. It's very challenging to get them to sign on, even, remove the fact that he had a terrible experience. that's not a contract a movie star like Ben Affleck signs.
No,
you gotta find some, or you know, and that's another thing about you know, we could go on a whole side note about why Marvel works and all that is, yeah, you struck gold with RDJ being the most charismatic guy on the planet and him being a little down and out, and they just plucked him at the right time. That I can't wait for the day where, like, you know, I know obviously you can go and watch as many special features and featurettes and all these things. I can't wait for the day where they actually truly put out a documentary, like really dissecting the way that came together, because it was a huge mix of, like, you know, great strategy and great people, but also right time, right place. There was an appetite.
The perfect storm.
It was perfect. And now it's like you've got DC, literally the CEO saying, yeah, we're going to copy that. We're going to do it exactly like they did it. And it's like, you can't. It's not the same set of circumstances. It's not. And clearly there also seems to be, you know, and this isn't disrespect to creatives and writers. Like,
Disney tried to capture lightning in a bottle again with a new Star Wars trilogy by continuing on the old ones, to the point that they even brought the old cast back for some of them, and they failed. And it's like, you can't just copy it. There's elements of timing that go into this, and it's right place, right time.
Yeah, like the zeitgeist of what's going on. Like there was that at that time. It's not that there wasn't superhero movies, but there was a lull. Like there was, you know, we had Batman, we had the Nolan trilogy going, but other than that, there was like a little bit of a lull in, like, what's out there for the general audience. Because you know, we can say from the Dark Knight trilogy is not necessarily for everyone in terms of its tone. It's a darker. It was the right time, and they just know how to tell good stories, and that's another thing that, at least for me, sorry listeners, I still have yet to watch a movie out of DC that I love. I don't. I think they're all
out of, hold on, whoa, out of the DCEU.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. But I really don't. I honestly, I find them all, to quote the kids, basic. They're so basic to me.
No. You think they're all mid?
Yeah. That's what I think. But also, like, they honestly, those movies have more in common with, like, the original Fantastic Four from, like, the early 2000s than any of the Marvel movies. Like, they just feel.
Would you rather watch Batman v Superman or Venom Let There Be Carnage?
Oh my God.
I'm going to say Venom Let There Be Carnage, because at least it's over in 90 minutes.
That's true. Like, I don't know, because they're both hate watches for sure. There's something kind of fun about the level of investment that I have in BVS, because I care about those characters more. So I guess it's just, you know, am I in a mood to get riled up? If I'm in a mood to get riled up, you got to put on BVS so you can scream at the television.
Yeah. Okay. I think basically what I wanted to achieve in this episode is what we've achieved, just sort of debating on where they should go from here. What we do know is Shazam is coming. Shazam 2, we know Black Adam, and as of right now, The Flash is also still coming. Joker 2 has officially been announced. The Batman 2, even though they're saying it hasn't officially been greenlit, it's happening. So
Aquaman,
The Lost Kingdom, that's right. And beyond that, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think what happens with this Ezra Miller situation and The Flash is going to be really interesting, because if you put this movie out and you do the whole Keaton taking over for Ben thing like that, you then have to use that as like a continuation, and then you've got Supergirl in there, and it's like,
which I don't know. Are they going to scrap? That's a whole other can of worms.
I see. That's the thing. Yeah. So if you do have to scrap this movie, do you kind of go back to the drawing board creatively and are like, well, I mean, we were gonna basically replace Henry Cavill's Superman with Supergirl, and we were gonna replace Ben Affleck with Michael Keaton, but now that this movie isn't coming out, do we have to do that? Like, now that it's like, can we try and get Ben back? Can we try and, or are we gonna do a different Batman? I think with our Pat's being the age that he is and that story that he is, I think if you're going to have a second Batman, it makes more sense to go older, which contradicts what we were saying earlier about casting younger, which perfectly proves our point that, like, this is a fucking mess. It
is. Yeah. I actually like, again, I'm sitting here as if it's not, you know, like as if $200 is $200 million, excuse me, is, you know, something to sneeze at. But it's like, I actually think there would be something liberating to this business plan to shed off some of the things that, because you know what, it's not, I can say this, Rob, you and I both have, you know, 9 to 5 jobs, we work. It's not fun to pick up someone else's garbage and try and make gold out of it. Sometimes you just got to say, this was doomed to fail. This was doomed to fail.
But again, just when you think that you've sorted through everything, a new wrench comes in. This movie is testing very well. Black Adam is not testing very well. I haven't heard anything about Shazam, but I would assume I'm going into Shazam expecting what the first one was.
It's a C-level movie. I think part of going to see that movie is your expectations are not high.
Yes.
Nobody's going to that movie expecting it to be. I think you know, with Black Adam, my expectations are also not high. I think where there's a little bit of extra pressure on that film is the incessant marketing of that, and the hype that Dwayne has been, you know, putting on his Instagram and making appearances and stuff. It's kind of like, oh god, is this going to be a dumpster fire? Like that. Yeah. That doesn't look great. I think Aquaman will be fine at best.
You and I, look, we don't need to get into this right now, but you didn't care for the first one. I like the first one. The first one, in my opinion, of all the DCEU movies, is the best one. Like, for sure.
That's not a high bar.
For sure. Like, so I think, I don't know. It remains to be seen. But yeah, this is what a time we live in. We've got
it is. It's wild that, and also that we have access to this level of information about the business, because that's the other part of this. I know we're trying to wrap up here, but like, that's the other part of this, right? Is so much of this is so public, and that's what makes this decision-making process very difficult, because I personally, like, and I'm someone who said that I support, you know, releasing the movie for the benefit of those who aren't Ezra Miller, because one person should not define a project. I will struggle to go to the movie theater, hand over my hard-earned money, and then go to the concession stand where there's a cup with this guy's face on it.
Well, but that's honestly, Kelly, I think that
they gotta get creative with that.
But you were saying earlier about making pivots, and I think if you do release this, Michael Keaton in the bat suit becomes the face of this movie, and he's on all the cups, and he's like or Supergirl like that.
Come to the Flash. Oh, it's terrible. Like you're right. You're right.
Or you put a cup out that just has like the Flash logo on it. Yeah. You don't put his face on anything.
But the other thing that's so depressing about this, like that I just struggle with, is like, at the end of the day, this movie, there are gonna be lots of little kids going to this, and they don't know what's going on. And a lot of them are going to walk out, and that's going to be their new hero. And it's like,
it's gross.
Oh, I'm cringing.
Gross.
I'm cringing. Gross. That's enough from me.
All right, we're going to get out of here, Kelly. This will not be the last time that we discuss developments with Warner Brothers Discovery.
You're looking forward to the 90-Day Fiance universe.
No. It's the DC universe alongside the 90-Day Fiance universe in the streaming service.
Right. And you're also looking forward to the rebranded, refreshed Pennyworth.
Oh my
God.
The
origin of Batman's butler.
Oh my God, dude. You see that and you're like, this is, oh no. Like,
go Google that, folks. We won't waste more time.
What is going on here? God. All right. 45 minutes. We're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week. I think Brad will be back next week with us. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but that's the beauty of doing a weekly news show, Kelly. If there's no TV show that we're reviewing, we just kind of wing it every week and do the latest in comic book movie and blockbuster movie news. And once again, hit that like and subscribe button. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just rambling on. I'm trying to make a compelling argument to get you to hit the subscribe button and I'm failing miserably at that. But do it anyway, because we work really hard and we like bringing this show to you guys. And we appreciate you. Even if you watch 5 minutes of this video, we appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.